What's up, everybody? I was editing a video, so I decided to drop this. So I just finished a walk, recorded a video, and then I got another thought here. And in the video, I was talking about the numbers of men and women, the number of men who want to get married. So there's a dearth. Kevin Samuels talked about this, right? You can go over to blackdemographics.com, look at the numbers. There's a video that I reviewed with Savvy Saps and Shay Charday, in which both of those ladies were talking about the numbers and the numbers of black eligible men and women. But for this one, I want to talk about the black eligible men. 54% roughly of black men are single and in the middle class. No kids, single and in the middle class. The question has to be asked. I asked this question way before Savvy Sabs, and I agree with her assessment about this. I'm just saying, how many of those men want to be married? How many of them are member of the rainbow, either explicitly or implicitly, right, on the down low or whatever? Yeah, and how many just want marriage, right? So we gotta kind of break apart, disaggregate those numbers, and really try to figure out, how many of those men want to be married, or whatever. Again, we're talking about financially viable men. If you're in the middle class, I don't care what your status is, you're eligible for marriage. Forget about what YouTube or Instagram and all these other nonsensical things are saying. We've got to get those men and young men to get married. So I talked to my daughter and to her friends and to her female friends, and the problem is that these guys don't want to get married, right? If there's a guy who knows he's got his stuff together, he's an HVAC or a truck driver or a forklift operator or a construction worker, or maybe he's got his MBA or whatever, and he knows he's got it going on, and not to mention if he's got the looks and all that, they don't want to settle down. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. But this video is about helping the community, and what we got to do is what's best for the community. And what I think we got to look at, we got to look at other communities and do a comparative analysis about what they're doing differently than what we're doing. And now, if the Indian culture can come over here and make whatever they're making collectively between their husbands and wives, both being college educated, both making moves. And why is it that those men have a greater chance of getting married than others, right? How come they push marriage, right? How come they are more accommodating to the idea of marriage, even though they have the same, if not superior, financial and economic success? That's a question we got to answer. Now, I don't want to be accused of always blaming the women, but you got to blame the women. Why are you blaming the women, Doc? All right. The reason I'm blaming women is because the reason that men get married. If you ask, why is a man getting married? He's getting married for legacy, and for family building and structure. Another reason that they got married was for sex. Of course, sex leads to families when done correctly. So, one of the biggest reasons that men, particularly men who are of means and substance, are saying that listen, I just play around, I just run the field. Why? Because they're running around and all these women are giving it to him. As long as you're going to give it to him, you're not requiring marriage, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, right? So that's the biggest incentive, is that ladies have to understand what feminism has done to you, the sexual liberation, and I'm including not only just talking about it, but I'm including the different birth control methods. It's just loosen the reins. Now, okay, you want to live like men, okay, but now there's a downfall to that. And how long do you want to run around and do whatever? And if you run around like this and you aren't finding the results, or later on trying to get married and you're not finding the results, or you're finding out the guys don't want to date you because of body count, I think you gotta take a look at that. And I try to tell young girls, your body count matters. They don't want to hear it. How come guys this and how come that? And you're all right. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. It matters. You might not like it. Might not think it's fair. Might not. At the end of your conversation, what you don't like, it's still the answer that this is what is. That is what it is. So that's primary. Is you ladies got to look at yourself, right? Now, secondary, yeah. Do I hold men at all accountable in saying they should want that? Yeah, they should. And I think we got to do a better job as mentors, uncles, fathers, stepfathers, of mentoring these men and telling them to get married. And this was done very much in my job when I first became a police officer. Of course, I was a police officer in 1995, or that's when I became. And I can remember the old timers, right? The lieutenants, the captains, standing in a roll call telling us, you young new guys, because I was 22, and there was a bunch of us on the midnight shift who were young guys, 25, 26, 27. I was a young guest at 22. But they were telling us, listen, you can't run these streets. You got to go find yourself a good girl and settle down. Another old timer used to tell me, stop worrying about what kind of car you're driving and get yourself a wife and get yourself a house. That's what they said. So, is that philosophy still happening? It should be, not only in the police department, but it should happen, in churches. It should happen in construction companies, architectural landscaping companies. Should happen everywhere, right? So I'm admitting that. I'm saying that we got to raise a generation of men who are lineage focused, laser focused on marriage. But unfortunately, it's too easy to not think along those lines when you can go to a bar or club. It's hot in there. You go to a bar or club, have a good time, and a woman looking at you, and then you can take her home and sleep with her. Or you can get in an app and then be with her that night. Just saying, it's difficult. So, our whole culture is kind of screwed the pooch on this. And then another big reason is you got to change these marriage laws. These are three things that I would suggest you got to change with the marriage laws. And the third being the marriage laws. And you got to take a look at what other countries are doing, in particular China. And I don't think China's gone far enough. I just think that we got to go farther with that, and we got to take a look at why men aren't getting married, the risk of financial ruin, the risk of more of ladies. I think we got to. I hear the argument about no fault divorce. And the ladies saying that, it was just easier just to get out of it, even though they've been dealing with years of abuse, rather than trying to approve abuse. They could just say, okay, it's no fault divorce. Let's just get this over. I can actually understand that argument. But I think that, if there's a contention there, I think that if there's a contention there, then you got to listen to the contention. The guy said, I don't want to get divorced. I wasn't abusive. I wasn't, there's no reason for her to leave me. And again, it's not about you leaving. You can leave. You just, should you leave under some circumstances of just not being happy or not enough excitement, and just deciding, hey, listen, I want to, relive my 20s, and just, and now the guy is financially strapped and hindered. So, yeah. And then, on a recent live that I did, having a kind of a disagreement about itemization of child support. You gotta take a look at all this, right? Guys nobody wants to do that, man. Nobody wants to do that. So I don't blame guys who are being more conservative with their wallets. Certainly I am, and I don't want to be, and I'd like to have somebody to call my own. I'd like to be in that situation again. But the risks to it, the whole government in your business, I just can't take that. I just can't take that. And I am no expert in this, but I think that we gotta take a look at what's going on here and try to do what we can do in order to appease, some of the concerns, some of the legitimate concerns that men have concerning financial ruin through divorce. You got to sell your house. Your friends, not only the financial losses, but the emotional losses. Right? Your friends don't talk to you. Your parents are disappointed. Guys feel as if they lose their sense of being and purpose, and they end up committing, self-deletions, all this stuff, man. The whole thing is just so traumatic, and to go through that because of the whim of someone else, in particular, we know it's a contagion. We know it's a social contagion. If your friend gets divorced, you're something like I forget the exact number, but something like this. You have a 70% chance of going through the divorce yourself, right? All your friends start to join the bandwagon, right? So these are things that we got to really kind of think about. They closed today. Oh, man. Anyway, so I'd like to know your thoughts, your opinions about this. This is going to be a short one here. I really, these are just some of the ideas I had about, creating more men who want to be economically, who want to be attached. Because I want to go to get some of these clothes. So to create more men who want to be in a relationship and a long-term relationship. So we got to take some of the anxiety away, and that anxiety is going to be the financial pressures of what happens if things go wrong. And unfortunately, we live in a country where 60% of the time, 50 to 60% of the time, it does go wrong. If you do it again, it's something like 60 to almost 70%. So, and listen, I think that we got to change I think there's a lot we got to change about the narrative and the culture of divorce. And I really wish that it wasn't on the table. I really wish it wasn't a thing. It really wasn't on the table. Because as long as it's on the table, and I've talked about this before, it's on the table, it's like a spare tire, right? You drive like a maniac, because there's a spare tire in the back. And as long as that possibility is there, it just creates this safety net. And I don't like that at all. And I wish that I wasn't in that fix, or I hadn't succumbed to that. So, I think we got to raise these boys to want to be married, not to fear it, to embrace it, and all that comes with it. This is a tough conversation, man. It's a tough conversation because I'm thinking about my time as being a 22-year-old guy, and I just know that it was not a pleasant experience. It just wasn't. So, do I want guys to sign up for that? I think we gotta raise people who understand what marriage is. People, men and women. We gotta raise boys and girls to become men and women so that they understand the purpose of marriage and what it takes to be married, and emulate and imitate and look to good married-minded married people. And I don't know how easy that is. I don't know how easy that is. I got to be honest with you, because there's so much has changed. There's a power dynamic. Sometimes, depending on the couple, there can be a power struggle, a power dynamic that the people are wrestling with inside the confines of the marriage. And who wants to deal with a power struggle? Who wants to deal with all this type of stuff, right? And I just think so much about, this talk that's been going on my channel in particular, about this masculinity issue. I talked to V Mindful about it. I talked to Coach Marshawn about it. These, ladies, we want to raise guys who are marriage minded, but a lot of these ladies aren't either. They don't understand what it means to be a wife. They want to change the ideas, be partners, and man, can I honestly ask guys to sign up for that? I think 22 is too young for a guy, but let's just say 29, 30, you really have some maturity behind you, probably really set in your job, career, or whatever, really kind of figure yourself out. Let's just say 30, 35. You really, this whole partner talk has really destroyed the concept of marriage. And I really think that we do better when we're in gender roles. Again, we played a video the other night about what's going on in China, and the ladies in China are saying, listen, these ideas, strict gender roles are out the door. They're passé. They're old school, and the guys aren't signing up for that. Nobody's gonna sign up for that. I'm not signing up for that. And I could not encourage anyone to do that. So you want me to tell guys to be more marriage minded? The women have to be just as marriage minded, not just what I talked about before, not sleeping around and making sure that they hold their virtues and all that kind of stuff. Because a guy doesn't want a woman who's who's quote unquote run through. He doesn't. But at the same time, you got to raise girls into women who know what their roles, responsibilities, and duties are. If you don't want that, and if you're thinking that's old school, that's so 1950s and all, okay, but the guys are overwhelmingly showing. You haven't watched that video? They're overwhelmingly showing. I'm not dealing with that. China has a 35 million man surplus to the women. 35 million more men. And these women can't find a husband? They're hosting events. 50 guys show up. 50 women show up. One guy shows up. There have been events here in the U.S. where no men have showed up. They got to pay men to. They're not showing up. Seen articles and videos about nobody's buying drinks, making video, showing up to dating events, speed dating events, and all this stuff. Guys are completely checked out of this. So how do we check them back in? Changing the marriage laws, creating environments that are conducive to the ideas of marriage. Getting back to the idea of what it means to be traditionally married. And as long as you continue to push one thing, the other thing's not going to happen. And raising men with the idea and the focus on marriage, but you can't tell them to sign up for a bad deal. Can't tell them to sign up for a bad deal. And I talk to ladies a lot of times, and they say, "Listen, I wouldn't tell my son. I wouldn't tell my son to get married." You look at the women out here, the quality of women. They wouldn't tell them to get married either. So. All right, I'd love to know your thoughts, your opinions. I kind of just had a thought here, and I wanted to kind of go down this rabbit hole about, I wrestle with the idea of how we get more marriageable men to want to be married. And again, it's the marriage laws and it's the women, and we got to raise them to do this. But even if we did all that, we still got to have quality women. Got to have quality women. Because a man can get married and his life can be a living hell. Nobody's getting married to be sexually frustrated. Nobody's getting married to be emotionally emasculated or emasculated, financially emasculated. Nobody's getting married. No man's going to get married to give up everything and then not get anything, or the risks far outweigh the reward. And nobody's going to get married to do that. Sorry, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to want that. They're not going to want that. So here I am wrestling with this idea. I thought I had it all figured out. If we change the laws, if we change the the structure, making sure the men were geared and were marriage minded or totally marriage minded from the time they were toddlers, and we got women to get on board and be more to preserve their sanctity more, that we get a lot more marriage. But then I had to think and say, we solved a lot of those problems, but we still need marriageable women. And I think that a lot of times the ladies too have to be told about what their roles are. And I don't think that they know that. It's not about getting gifts and getting princess treatment and getting free hair, makeup, and nails and stuff done by some dude, by some simp. Right? It's not what marriage is. It's commitment, loyalty, the raising of family, structure, duty, honor. There's duty in that. All right. I started off one way. I had it all figured out, and I kind of... It's an issue that we got to solve. Because I want this. I want that for my children. I want my son to be married. I want my daughter to be married, happily married. But I also know that they both have to go in there with a sense of duty, honor. My son has to go in there with a sense of he's going to be a protector, a provider. My daughter has to go in there saying she's going to be a nurturer, provide some nurturing, loving, holistic environment. And I don't know if we're raising our children to be that way. So let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Hit me in the comment section. Now I'm depressed. And I'm doubly depressed because the place I wanted to go to get myself something to eat at is closed.